So again, topic, leading cultural change to ensure successful AI adoption and engagement. Now, one of the underlying themes here is organizational culture, the norms, the rules, the expectations, the way things get done in an organization. When engaging in organizational transformation, ignore it at your peril. Work with it or transform it. It enables desired outcomes, even with AI. Today, our panel will address leading culture change to ensure successful AI adoption. Let me introduce you to this amazing panel. To my left, to your right, is Delphine Donné. Have I pronounced it correctly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delphine is a people-first leader, an executive with over 25 years of experience in consumer electronics. Lived and worked in China, North America, and Europe. She has transformed many global businesses, leading innovation and forming cross-functional global teams. Today, she leads Logitech's biggest business group, Personal Workspace Solutions, equipping people and organizations with the right tools to succeed in the ever-evolving AI-accelerated landscape of work. Next up, to my left, one over, you've heard from her already, it's Emma Verhagen. Serves as the Global IT Portfolio Director at Unilever and is the founder and CEO of IdealShift.AI. At Unilever, she crafted a cutting-edge AI strategy in collaboration with MIT and led transformative AI programs in areas such as robotic process automation, demand forecasting, analytics, optimizations, and machine learning. And then the gentleman, Alex Bermudez. He has spent the last decade building and leading go-to-market strategies and teams for emerging technology companies at a global level. His work has principally focused on data protection, data governance, and hyperscaler marketplaces to drive adoption strategies and enterprise rollouts. I think you're in for a treat. Let's give them a hand to welcome them. All right, I'm Kevin Jones, the Director of Center for Teaching and Learning, and Associate Professor of Management at Indiana University. I have the pleasure of leading the discussion with this panel. And so, a question for everyone. What strategies can organizations employ to foster a culture that embraces AI and empowers employees to leverage AI tools effectively? Anyone?
I'll take it. So I think AI is here to stay, and it's everywhere. And it's already been integrated in a lot of the applications we've used for quite some time. So I think now there is just a new way to increase productivity. I think the companies play a really big role in making sure that we understand it's everywhere, but not everybody has the same level of fluency with it. And depending on where you are in the organization, the type of task you do. So we play a role in really developing guidance, training, and also at all levels of the organization to use it. But we need to be aware of all these fears that can come from it. So we have to really build guidelines, but also training. And understand that some people will go fast and some people will go maybe slower, and not exclude them and really bring them on this journey. So that's a very important area.
What I'm hearing is people first in the strategy for AI transformation.
Absolutely, people first.
All right.
Yes. So how to help people embrace AI? I see it like a bus that you are either in the bus, in the AI journey, or you're out of the bus. And the bus is stopping. And now there is a big stop where people can hop in this AI journey and can be at the forefront and can help actually not only bring AI further, but be on top of AI later on. I imagine 20, 30 years ago, people not wanting to use a computer and thinking, why do I need a computer? Or do you remember those advertisements where people would say, I don't need a phone? I don't need a mobile phone in my pocket. Why would I walk around with it? It would bother me so much. Show me one person that doesn't have a mobile phone now. So you're either in the bus or you're out of the bus. Being able to work on a computer makes you unemployable. I think in the future, not being able to work with AI agents to monitor them, to make sure that you teach them, you train them, then that may mean that you are out of a job later on. And it's inevitable, as Delphine was saying. So either you hop in or you hop on later, but then you need to catch up a lot more. And I see this, you can see it as a threat, or you can see it as an opportunity. And people and the humanity always finds new needs. And we always want more, right? The amount of stuff that we have, and we still want more. And I see that there will be jobs. For sure, there will be new jobs created. Just how before the Industrial Revolution, we had 40% of the jobs were in agriculture, and now it's not. And that's okay. That's great, right? But then we had to go through it, and it was painful, right? But we came the other side in a better culture and a better society and more connected.
It's a twofold responsibility. Yes, the organization has responsibility to help develop, but it's also incumbent responsibility on us as individuals to join in, to seek, to develop, to grow. So Alex, what do you have to say about this?
I think there's an important aspect around intentionality that organizations need to think about in terms of how AI is going to practically be deployed, right? We hear all the time that there is pressure from board level and executive level down throughout organizations to come up with an AI strategy. Say to the world or say internally, what is your AI strategy? But it's a bit of cart leading the horse, so to speak, right? Because AI is great and can deliver so much from an innovation and an ROI standpoint in theory, but there have to be business drivers behind that, right? There's got to be actual use cases and things that will help the business progress forward, and that can also be deployed in a scalable way, right? At the end of the day, the worst technology is the technology that doesn't get used because there's cost. You don't recognize the benefits that come out of it. And so I think organizations have to take a very measured and sort of calculated approach to looking at their AI strategy and their rollout plan, because ultimately, in doing so, you enable not just the business to benefit from it, but you also, to the comments made by Delphine and Emma respectively, bring people along in that journey when you have communication, when you have a vision that you can share, and you can sort of foster and enable everyone's part to play in it, right? So I think in terms of the practicalities of making sure that AI can work for, if not everyone, as many people as possible, is really dependent on the approach, the vision, and then the communication more tactically that come off the back of whatever an organization is working towards with AI.
There's an important concept. Value-driven strategy, even with AI. How about that? Well, thank you for answering the first question. Now we're going to move to some specific questions. And first question is for Emma. Emma, how do we design solutions that not only accelerate AI deployment, but also support the cultural shift needed for widespread adoption across various organizational traditions?
So basically, how to design your AI solutions to get maximum adoption in the organization. And I see it as a 5-step process. The first step is to look at the company strategy. Don't look at what you can do with AI and how to push it into the business, but look at what does the business need. I was talking to a company before, and someone came with the idea, let's make a chatbot, but they don't have customers. They have one that always buys. Like, why would you want a chatbot? Oh, because it's fancy. So strategy. What's the strategy of the company? What are the main issues? The thing that costs us the most, or costs the company the most. The next step is to look at AI opportunities. So look at AI, not just Gen AI, but Gen AI, robotic process automation, and machine learning. I normally say is the brain and the hands and the collaboration or communication. And the next step is the third step is to look how does that solution or those solutions fit in the organization. What's the future state of your organization? Don't do it outside. Don't do only the technology, but think holistically. Start holistically with strategy and holistically with the people. And the next step is to do a roadmap. A roadmap not only with what we want to do, but when we want to do it. So you create that urgency in the organization. And then the last step, the fifth step, is to look at how do you deploy those solutions. And start small, because that's the best way to minimize risk, and then build on top of that. And work with modular technologies that I'm a big fan of Microsoft, because they are modular, they are small. You can teach your own people in the organization to use certain tools or to enhance certain Microsoft tools. It's approachable. And you can integrate it in so much easier because you are already on Microsoft as a starting point. So those would be my 5 steps in how to design AI solutions for an organization in order to make sure that they really have the impact that is needed. So strategy, AI for the strategy, AI solutions for that strategy, future state of the organization, roadmap, and then solutioning AI in a modular, iterative, quick approach, quick way, delivering results. And then I would say a bonus, measure. Start measuring before you start your implementation, measure your 0 state. And then measure that KPI often. And bonus of the bonus is instead of trying to come up with a new measure, look at what the company is currently measuring. Because if the company is currently measuring a KPI, they must really care about the KPI, especially if it's a high-level KPI. And then you get much more traction in the organization to actually adopt your tools.
I think I'm going to use that as my lecture for my MBA students on how to implement AI, because it's good. Strategy, a plan, don't forget the people, right? Don't forget the metrics. Know what your outcome, know what you're striving to get to, right? And yeah, map out your journey. Because one of the things about mapping out your journey is you can always modify it as things come up. But you don't ever want to start without a plan, right? What thoughts do you have about what Emma talked about? Any thoughts, other thoughts?
Well, I think having a clear plan, I think there needs to be an ambition. And when it comes top down, it helps everyone to come along. And it needs to be shared KPIs across the different leadership team, for example, because otherwise it can happen in silos, and that needs to be pervasive. As you said, I think it's important to have a great North Star, but then define step by step so people can swallow it one at a time, because it can be overwhelming for some parts of the organization, and we don't want people to feel excluded in that journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Alex, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think expanding on the sort of strategy as well as what comes with the strategy, there's probably a question that a lot of organizations need to ask as you think about a broader sort of set of use cases to deploy, which is, do the use cases, does a cost-benefit analysis, even as rudimentary as that may sound, really make sense to deploy AI across every department for as many users as possible? Or are there certain things that maybe AI just, let's call it what it is a bit of overkill for, right? And I think every organization has to sort of rationalize that a bit in terms of what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So that, I think, just leading off the strategy and then ultimately how it can help to drive profitability and, more healthy operations is a question that organizations should really consider.
All right. 3 takes on the question. What do you think? All right. We have another question now, and this one goes to Delphine. Delphine, how can leadership, something I think you know about, right? How can leadership actively shape and communicate an AI-driven vision to ensure engagement and alignment across teams and departments, especially in traditional industries?
Well, you know, today what we see is that work is transforming every day. And AI and people are at the center of this transformation. And it's an acceleration. At Logitech, we focus on how we can unleash people's potential in work and play. And technology is really about that role to bridge people and all the activities they can do in the cloud, including AI. I think in terms of the leadership, we really need to be aware that first, not everybody is at the same level. So you need to first identify what are the needs and barriers for all your employees, no matter the department, and not just like suddenly task someone to be responsible for the AI deployment without really understanding the complexity across the organization, and along the way communicate very clearly about fears that they may have, because a lot of people hear AI cost cutting, which is actually not what it is about. It's about freeing up time for repetitive tasks and having more time to add value, brainstorm, do strategy. But there are also guidelines. There is a lot of complexity around privacy and security. So I think, again, first, identifying these needs and barriers. The second one is to also enable across the organization for people to speak up, to feel like they can ask a question, or, you know, if you're in a meeting and you start talking about AI, you don't have one person very shy, not daring to say they've never used it or they don't dare to use it. So we need to encourage a culture where people can speak up and really just face their own fears, talk about it, but people can also address their biases. And then we have to empower the organization at all level. Obviously, guidelines, KPIs, training. But I think it's you empower as well when you give regular examples. I mean, I've had to learn, like many people, on a daily basis through my jobs, and I try to give examples all the time of where I use AI for. And again, this is about this communication and allowing people to learn and give them access to the tools to learn. So for me, there is these three important steps of identifying the fears, enabling people to speak up and participate in that culture transformation. And the third one is empower people by giving them the right tools to learn.
And what you've described is what we call engaged leadership, okay? Engaged leadership is one that has a pulse on the organization, not just the finances and not just the strategy, but also how people are thinking. And that means a leader has to be present as well. You can't be distant from the organization, right?
You have to lead by example. So you have to talk about your own challenges that you even face when you build prompt on, you know, something you work, but also help people understand you have to take, you have to add your value, step back and really think about this solution to help you be more critical as well of the outcome you get. But overall, leaders, I think, have to be more empathic and vulnerable as well to share in terms of the challenges that we will all face together, and really go with the team, not say, hey, develop the tools for tomorrow and I'll follow when I have time. You have to come with them.
Leading with people, not leading over people, leading with people.
Yes.
That's pretty profound. What thoughts do you have about
Yeah,
what Delphine said?
what worked for us is to send our CEO and his leadership team to Silicon Valley. We organized an entire tour for them, and then they were so impressed and so inspired that our CEO made a video about what he experienced in Silicon Valley, and then very soon after, a paper came out on what's possible in Unilever and the art of the possible, basically. And that really helped, because then you have the person on the top excited, then trickles down. But if the person on the top is not and just delegates that, as you were saying, then it becomes very difficult.
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I think the top-down approach is really important, right? Because there's a level of vision and buy-in that enables a lot of things that comes along with that leadership buy-in fundamentally, right? I think there's an additional point that Delphine kind of touched on around, again, how you get buy-in from people, how you train and engage and sort of getting feedback. And I think part of where that can and should manifest itself as well is giving sort of frontline users, second-line users, the ability to also share their feedback, share their ideas as well about, what maybe would help them improve their day-to-day through the use of AI, RPA, different types of tooling and technology that can be available, right? Because ultimately people will help to innovate when they're engaged. They feel like they're heard and they feel like there's some education that's been invested to really help make them part of the journey. So I think facilitating that will help organizations in an ongoing fashion continue to get the most out of the technology they invest in.
Well, now let me go right back to you, Alex, with that and get a question here. How do you ensure that technology not only accelerates AI deployment, but also fosters collaboration between AI tools and human decision makers, enhancing overall acceptance and engagement?
Anybody who was here yesterday knows that I can speak very quickly when I need to, so I'm going to cover 5 points and try to get through them all in a good level of detail. And I'm going to kind of go in no particular order, first on the technical and operational side, and then on the people side as well. So the first thing that I would say is an organization needs to think about connectivity and architecture, right? How are we going to connect data to models? How are we going to kind of make things work, both from a technology and a structure perspective, so that we can take advantage of the investments that we're making and we can be open and creative and explore what AI can bring to the table, right? So an organization from an overall operational and technical perspective has to be capable of delivering that data and coming up with those use cases in a way that the organization can really take advantage of in a scalable and sustainable fashion. So that's the first thing I'd point to. The second thing I'd point to is around appropriate tools for different roles and different user types, right? Not everybody should have the same access. Not everybody should be able to leverage all of the same type of technology, because when you start looking at things like data risk and overexposure, you don't want to create those scenarios, right? Because people without appropriate guardrails will go exploit them in ways that you probably didn't intend or want them to do, right? So there's got to be that level of, if you want to call it role-based access control, what have you, those types of measures that can be put in place that can still facilitate deployment and usage without overexposing the business from a risk perspective, right? I think the third thing is, again, on the technical side, looking at making the technology usable. That probably sounds like a little bit of a duh type of comment, but where I think it becomes important, right, is not everybody's a prompt engineer. Not everybody has hours and hours and hours to spend away from their day job to really figure out, how do I get great with AI at a more technical level? We want to enable that. We want to create departmental SMEs as an example, but fundamentally, if we don't create technology that is end user facing and can sort of meet them at a conversational level where they are, then adoption will suffer, and ultimately any of the investments that are made in AI will not go fully realized because it's just not useful and usable. So we have to focus on user experience and how we balance that level of technical depth and creating subject matter experts with the average user from within a specific department who's never going to be great at writing prompts on a more technical level. And then that leads into, I think, that the two important people-related aspects. Number one, training, giving for the appropriate levels of responsibility, appropriate level of technical depth, role and sort of job-specific training, right? Because if people, again, feel as though they've been invested in, even if it's just recommending free LinkedIn learning courses, something as simple as that somebody can go leverage to look at AI, I think there are very practical things that companies can do to help generate that sort of fostering of creativity and understanding what can be done with a few simple steps. And then the last thing that I want to point to really is, again, that feedback loop, or proliferating subject matter experts within the business across departments, right? Because not everybody has to come from a development background to have a bigger part to play in this development cycle and in the AI journey, right? You have people from sales and revenue operations teams who have more technical backgrounds, or marketing operations. You have people who have specific skill sets within the business that don't need to have a full-time job related to AI deployment and strategy, But in practice, we hear a lot of organizations creating centers of excellence and subject matter expertise teams that can be embedded and be that go-to resource for a specific department when somebody has an idea or somebody has a challenge and they just want a little bit of support in helping with somebody who's right there closer to them, right? So I think from an org design perspective and ongoing sort of facilitation, by doing so and sort of creating some of those SMEs within specific groups, you're not only giving people something that they can really put their name attached to, right? And giving them something to feel good about, that they're developing a new skill set, but they're then also there as a trusted subject matter expert within the guardrails that the business has set to really be a peer that the team can count on to help continue to spread that adoption out as well.
So to facilitate that organizational change, do you think it's better suited by someone externally or someone internally to accomplish that?
Yes. No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, yes, there are incredible, talented consulting firms and teams, and solution providers who can help bring in external perspective based on the conversations with lots of different businesses they have. But at the end of the day, no one knows a company better than the people that actually work within it, right? And I think that's where there's a balance of bringing in external subject matter expertise and helping to skill up in lots of different ways. But you still need people internally who understand the strategy and the mission and the vision of the business to help guide, and not only guide in the early deployment stages, but make sure that there's sustainability around the approach, right? And I think that's the long-term strategy and vision. Is there's an amazing opportunity for consultants, solution providers, what have you, to be part of this story, but a company still needs to take ownership of that strategy, of those operations, and sort of the steady state into the long term to be successful.
Thoughts on Alex's perspectives?
I'm thinking that when you have a customer service agent, you need to continuously train it. Continuously, there can be new questions that are coming, or new internal processes, or you want to do more through the AI agent to also act on the request from the customer. So if you take this context, I think it's really important, as Alex was mentioning, that you involve people from the business. And I see that people from the business will grow to that level where they will continuously teach the AI agent. To set it up, you may need support, definitely, but you don't want to continuously rely on another company to train for any new training question that you need to go through an external supplier. And it is possible because LLMs allow us to communicate directly and to teach directly the tool. So I see actually also the role of people shifting from doing the work to monitoring the work, to making sure that it's running smoothly. And also I see a new development coming in AI, whereas right now with the neural networks, it kind of looks like a black box for many of us, that is going to start to explain itself and say, actually, I recommended this because of this reason. And then it becomes more explainable, and then you can monitor it easier, and then you can also have people approve and teach it back and say, hey, actually, this is not a good solution. You should change it like this, and then push that into the algorithm and make it stronger. But the business people have the knowledge to continuously make it better, and the technical people have the knowledge to set it up.
Wow.
Just to build on what Emma and Alex said, I think on one side it's really important to have someone kind of guiding internally to spread the wisdom and knowledge. But first you need the right type of leaders. You need leaders who are not just trying to accumulate resources and certainly build a big team, but leaders or someone who is going to be building the plan with every department, understanding what they need, defining how to implement it together. Because most of the time, it's the rest of the company that will have to implement it and do a lot of the work as well. So that's important, the type of leaders you choose to work on a transformation like this internally. The second one is you have different ways to help. Again, top-down and bottom-up. Top-down is, for example, at Logitech last week, we had a really big broad-based digital summit on AI transformation, but a responsible AI transformation. And different parts of the organization came to talk about what they've done, how they do, but also we are provided guidelines on, I work with confidential information pretty much every day. So I have to use an internal tool to do all the AI work I need to do. And in what context and what you can put inside has to be coming with certain level of guidelines. So there is what I call the top-down. But the bottom-up is every teams have an opportunity in their weekly team meetings to say, hey, who's got an example of how they use AI this week? And you'll be surprised by the amount of answers you get from, I work on my next org evolution, asking AI some suggestions, to someone who said, well, actually, I'm planning my vacation in San Francisco, and I ask AI to do the full brief for me. Can be many different things, but I think by discovering the diversity of what you can do in different parts of the organization makes it less intimidating.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you're an educator, you're an inspirer, and a director as well, in the sense of showing people where to go. But I have a question here that is a little different question, and it's for anyone. As we know, even with the best plans and the best approaches, sometimes barriers are created. And often they're because people don't understand. And they either ask this question or they don't ask the question, why are we doing this? Okay? So how do we answer that why for people? Why are we doing this?
I can take one. I live in a world of too many opportunities. I have, it's amazing. Logitech has existed for 40 years. I've been there 18. And there is not 1 year where I don't have more ideas and great innovation suggestions than I can deliver with the investments and people I have, like every year. So my job is to prioritize and try to figure out how to allocate resources. The why, it's an amazing opportunity to obviously save time on repetitive tasks and suddenly free up time and resources to be able to work on these extra projects we'd love to do, we couldn't before. So that's a huge stimulation because suddenly the team feels like we have an opportunity to grow faster or launch a new product that we couldn't kind of get to before. Huge motivation.
Excellent, excellent. Thoughts? Why?
Yeah, I think if you don't know why yourself, or if you get this question often, you really need to start thinking why, also yourself. Because too many companies go all over the place with their AI solutions. Like the example that I mentioned before, hey, give me a chatbot, but we don't even have many customers to support. It needs to start again from the company strategy. Then you can say, that's why. And not only that, but when you are working on the AI strategy, that is trickling down from the strategy of the company, then you should talk to all the levels of the organization. And then they can say, hey, because you told me, remember that you said that you're doing this, or you have this challenge in the context of the overall company strategy, or in the context of your departmental strategy, or in the context of your boss strategy. That's why, because we talked last week, or we talked last month, or we are talking on a regular basis. If there are big time lapse between you talking to a person and then you have to convince them to implement it, then you missed your boat. You should continue that momentum. You should continue that conversation. And I think that's why implementing AI solutions on a modular, quick way is very important, Because if you're coming 1 year later and say, hey, remember 1 year ago you told me this? Yeah, you lose the momentum. You lost the momentum already.
Very fine. Alex.
I guess the way that I would approach answering this, especially when somebody's having a conversation one-to-one or in a department of people who hopefully are fairly bought into whatever your business is doing, whatever your business is. The way that I would phrase this, and take it with a pinch of salt, right, as AI continues to evolve. But one of the things that I would say is AI will not replace smart and capable people who are working on hard problems. Right, I think one of the points made earlier was this ability to do away with certain aspects of really mundane, repetitive tasks that are done over and over again, right? But you still need smart, committed, capable people to go solve the big problems, to make strategic decisions. Back to kind of the question earlier around connecting the technology with decision makers, right? And so I think, yes, we know the technology is going to continue to evolve. We know the sort of convergence of LLM for broad use cases and SLM for more finite industry-specific use cases, right? That's going to continue to happen, and it's going to make what we can do with the technology more and more interesting and more advanced. But still, fundamentally, I think we have to recognize that we need capable, committed, smart people in seat. And the goal is to help make their jobs a little bit easier, give them the opportunity to do some more interesting things that maybe they didn't have time or the capability to do before. And that's kind of the way that I would approach the conversation.
How about that? So, what do you know? This group right here has given you a treasure trove of information. So I'm going to give them all a chance, if there's anything else they would like to add to our topic. Our topic, which lost it, of course, there it is. Our topic is leading cultural change to ensure successful AI adoption and engagement. Last words on that topic.
I mean, I think it's just about, again, understanding that the journey is coming, because if we're all really honest with ourselves, it's not a question of if, it's about when, right? Every organization has their own stage of the journey that they're on, and AI proliferation across the organization, whether you're thinking of how you're going to use it, or you've got a strategy, or you're full on in deployment mode and building and iterating, right? Wherever you are, this is just going to continue to happen. So the best thing that we can do for our organizations is to provide the right tools, give people education, and make sure that we're really focused on the impact that these investments in AI can return.
I'd say hop on into the bus, and don't forget why you started your AI journey in the first place. Don't get lost in the details, but think strategically till the end, measure often. And if you have more questions, I'm happy to discuss later on as well.
I would say embrace the change, because it's an opportunity to have more flexibility, better work-life balance, learn along the way, and develop superpowers that can also create a more equitable and inclusive world. So I'm always excited about the future.
Now, I think that's worthy of a hand, don't you? I think this is worthy of a hand. And, I'm from the United States, and in the subcultural group called African Americans, and we have an expression that says, you better ask somebody, okay? Ask somebody, okay? You better ask. In other words, if something you don't know, you better ask. So now is your time. Ask this group of people something about this topic. And there you go. Lead the way.
Thank you. You talked a lot about promoting AI within your organizations. And what we also see is that there's a lot of mushrooming happening, like a lot of enthusiastic parties contract AI companies, they push their data everywhere, and maybe it will lead somewhere, maybe not. How do you not necessarily manage, but guide and structure it in a way that it also contributes to the core IP of the company?
I think it's important to have an AI excellence team that drive the AI strategy and implementation overall, and still leave opportunities for the teams to implement AI in their own tools. It can be, it's an important step to integrate AI, but if you can already have AI elements in existing tools, That can be very powerful. You don't want to have people copy-pasting from different places. So it's important to leave it decentralized, but also centralize it as well. So I would create a structure in which any new AI idea needs to go through that process of checking. Anyway, you have the European AI Act. You need to comply with regulations, and you need to have anyway that list. And then you make sure that if there is already a solution in place, that you're not building it again somewhere else with a separate team, but that you are joining forces. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was an excellent point, thank you. Which skill sets would you place in such a committee or team?
Which skill sets?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I would see as a core team and an extended team on two separate levels. So the core team should be people that know the business, that have been a while on the business, and at the same time have that deep understanding of what you can do with AI and can marry the two. And then at the same time, link to that core team to have an extended team in the business and an extended team in the technology teams. Where you can have regular governance sessions. Many times you have, especially in the bigger companies, you have strategy directors working for VPs. Work with those strategy directors to make sure that you get their troubles, you get their worries on a regular time. You connect not only receiving information from them on their challenges and their strategy, but also to connect on deploying. So it goes both ways. And then you can also be the channel further to go to the teams and say, actually, I think certain ideas that are coming from the business and certain needs that are top priority needs can be better implemented in these teams. So then have also some governance sessions regularly with the tech teams as well.
Just as a practical answer from Logitech point of view, I think it's important that you have the combination of IT, software, if you do software development, because there is so much work being done there, and legal and compliance, because there is just, it can, as you said, it can spread wild, where suddenly every employee has a different subset, and you can expose your company to a lot of risk if it's not properly managed. But you have really specific expertise that are required to create this new mapping in the organization.
Let's go to this gentleman right here.
Thank you. I'm interested in your approach, recommendations when it comes to not being AI ready as an organization. So it could be on the cultural side because of some missed opportunities for digitalization projects in the past. Or not having the data managed properly, or not knowing your processes. So there's a multitude of things that cannot be ready. So is there an approach that you would recommend, or maybe you see also the opportunity in AI to leapfrog those gaps?
So I think a couple things. There was a talking point about external versus internal expertise. External expertise is really a good place from a readiness standpoint. Either through resources, there are a lot of organizations that provide AI readiness assessments that you can go out and use, but you can always look to consulting firms that have specialization in AI and data governance and technology to come in and help kind of abstract the information that you need to know really from an overall readiness standpoint where you are there, right? So I think it is fundamental to use the tools out there and even look at guidance not just from the AI Act, but when you look at certain domain areas like the ISO 42001 standard around AI usage, which is not yet an accredited standard, but it's a great place to start. You also have NIST's RMF and some other sort of independent. I know IEEE are here and they've done a lot of work in this space as well. So there are some guardrails there and some things that you can look to reference and of course supplement that with external expertise. And then I think, again, internally, that's where you've got to bring some subject matter experts across technical, operational, and business teams together with those external resources to kind of have a really well-informed chat.
All right. Well, guess what time it is? That's the end of our time. We got 3 seconds to 1. Thank you very much. And if you want to interact with them, they're around. Ask some questions. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. Thank you, panel.